It's going to be the Hula here on Gimel Elul of a really great former chief rabbi of Israel, Rishon LeZion, one of the first Ashkenazi chief rabbis, Rabbi Avram Isaac HaKohen Kook, one of the great rabbis of his time. He was born actually on the 7th of September in the year 1865. He passed away in 1935. I think on 1st of September. He was close to 70 years of age at the time he passed away. He was Ashkenazi chief rabbi of, at that point in time, the British Mandatory of Palestine. He's considered one of the four fathers of religious Zionism and founded the famous Meir Harav Yeshiva, which currently is in around Kiryat Moshe area in Jerusalem. He was born actually in Latvia. He passed away in Jerusalem, in Israel. Very, very famous rabbi. I think he was connected just through his. We'll just say a few words about him. Now I wanted to speak about him and famous other chief rabbi of Israel, the Sephardi chief rabbi. There was Rabbi Uziel, very great rabbi. So I think he actually learned at one stage in time early on in his life in the famous Volozhin Yeshiva. I think when he was about 18 years of age, Yeshivat Etz Chaim, as it's well known as. And I think became close to Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, a very famous rabbi, the Netziv. And very much, I think when he was 23 years of age, he would become a rabbi in Zamul, or Zumal, I hope I pronounced it correctly. His only son was a great rabbi named Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook. He himself was also a great rabbi. We didn't really speak about, I don't think we've spoken about him yet in this series so much. He passed away himself in the year 1982, so that was his son. So maybe we'll explore about the family history at one stage in time later on as time progresses. Okay, so he would become a rabbi in Jaffa in Ottoman Palestine, and I think he arrived there in 1905, and he wrote commentaries on Agatot, on Masechet Brachot, and on Masechet Shabbat, respectively, and various other important teachings, let's just say. So he was very much a great rabbi. He will progress. I think he would spend time in London. I think First World War began, he was in Germany originally, and then he escaped to London via Switzerland, and he would become the rabbi of the Spitalfields Great Synagogue over there, or Machzekei Hadat, as they say, obviously in Brick Lane. This is actually based in London. Eventually he becomes the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. I think he returned from Europe in 1919 and was appointed a chief rabbi in 1921. That would be a position he would keep until the year 1935. So he was obviously a very, very great rabbi. There's a Mossad Harav Kook that was established in the year 1937. I think through another famous rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Maimon, was a famous religious Zionist leader, and much has been said about him. Now I want to tie this article in. I found a nice article on the Jewish Ideas website connecting him and Rabbi Ben Zion Meir Uziel, who was also a chief rabbi of Israel. I think the first chief rabbi, Sephardi chief rabbi, let's just say he was Rishon LeZion of his time. We'll just say something about Rabbi, just background about Rabbi Ben Zion Meir Chai Uziel. He was born actually in the year 1880 and passed away in 1953. So he was approximately 73 years of age. So their lives very much overlapped. He would become the chief rabbi of Palestine from 1939 to 1948, eventually of Israel from 48 to 53. So pretty much they're close to their time periods. They will span. I think he was a teacher at a yeshiva. He founded a yeshiva called Machzekei Torah for Sephardi young men. 1911, he was the Chacham Bashi of Jaffa, so very much connected to Rabbi Kook over there. His ideas were close to, and spirit was close, let's just say, to Rabbi Kook, which we're going to bring about and speak about in the coming minutes using this article. He was also a member of the Jewish Assembly of Representatives, Jewish National Council, Jewish Agency. He had parts in, and he was an advocate of strong relationships interfaith-wise with different countries. Also, he spoke many languages, including Arabic, and he really was a people's person. Also, he had a global worldview. Rabbi Uziel did, maybe you could say similar to what Rabbi Isaac Kook also had. And his philosophy was to unite people together as opposed to dividing, let's just say, bring Ashkenazi, Yemenite community and Sephardim community together. He also published various different great works. So I'm going to use this article now from the JewishIdeas.org website. I think it's called Rabbi Kook and Rabbi Uziel, two poskim and two approaches. It is used. I think it's actually written from Rabbi Mark D. Angel, director of the Institute for Jewish Ideas and Ideals. So I thought it would be an appropriate time to speak within regards to this. We're really a Sephardi channel over here. We're trying to explore the history of Sephardi Rabbonim, but I think we'll tie it in with because it's Hilula of Rav Kook over here. It's coming here on Gimel Elul. So I'll quote what he says. One interesting halachic question. Each halachic decision maker attempts to arrive at a decision that is objectively true. The poskim will study and analyze available halachic literature with the goal of understanding the halacha as clearly and accurately as possible. That's how he starts the introduction, let's just say. Okay, so we'll progress. So at the same time, halachic literature is characterized by a variety of decisions regarding the same questions. Now, different poskim arrive at different conclusions, even though they generally rely on the same source of literature. Sometimes these differences are based on alternative readings or interpretations of the source text. So he speaks about, now I'll just skip a bit, the interrelational relationship of the hashkafa and halakha may be illustrated by two great poskim, recent poskim, Rav Avram Isaac Kook, who says Hilula, his yahrzeit, Rabbi Ben Zion Meir Uziel, two chief rabbis, one of the Sephardi community, one of Ashkenazi, and they both dealt with understanding the nature of Jewish holiness. Rav Kook, obviously, he was born in Latvia and studied in yeshivot of Lozhen, really great yeshiva. In 1904, he emigrated to Israel. As I said before, and became the chief rabbi of Jaffa. 1990, was appointed the Ashkenazic chief rabbi of Jerusalem. And 1921, he became the first Ashkenazic chief rabbi of the land of Israel. So it would expound after 2 years this, let's say, premium top role of on the chief rabbinate in itself. Okay. So both Rabbi Kook and Rabbi Uziel were strong advocates of religious Zionism. They were outstanding communal leaders, teachers, scholars. Both were prolific writers who made great contributions in the field of halacha and hashkafa. But despite these external similarities, the attitude towards several vital issues were very different. Their, let's say, disparate understandings of the nature of Jewish peoplehood are manifested in a number of their halachic decisions. Now, I'm actually recording this quite late, so I'm a bit tired, but I hope I'll do well. He's done a very, very informative article over here, Rabbi Angel has done, which I must say from the outset. Okay, so it says, but let's, okay. The topic of conversion. He states, let us begin with a discussion of how they dealt with the question of conversion to Judaism. How does a non-Jew enter the Jewish fold? What is the nature of Jewishness, which, let's just say, the convert accepts? That's how he starts off. Rav Kook and Rav Uziel said the same Talmudic and rabbinic sources, that their rulings were diametrically opposed. Each other reflects their different hashkafot, their different understandings of the nature of Jewish peoplehood. Both dealt with the serious problem, let's say, of what to do with individuals who requested conversion to Judaism, even when it was believed that the converts were not likely to observe at all the mitzvot of it. So all rabbis have different views for that, and we have to understand why. Different communities also. For the most part, first of all, I must say on the outset, people that convert to Judaism, the Shem Shemayim, these are, a rabbi once said, these are really, really great people. He even cries when hearing about their stories, about the greatness of many of them. For the most part, he continues, that was just a side note, such converts were interested in Geirut, conversion, for the sake of marrying a Jewish person, and were not motivated by theological concerns. That might have been a worry in the various communities. Obviously, neither Rav Kook nor Rav Uziel thought that such converts represented the ideal. On the contrary, everyone would agree that it was preferable for converts to choose to join the Jewish people from belief in the truth of Judaism and a total commitment to observe the mitzvot. However, a great many converts do not come with these ideal credentials. So he's starting off stating about the importance of it being l'shem shemaim, let's just say, these conversions. Okay. Now, Rav Kook was adamant in his opposition to accepting converts who did not accept to observe all the mitzvot. Even if a convert followed the technical procedure for conversion, but lacked the absolute intention to observe the mitzvot, his conversion, over here, this is what the article says, is not valid. Quoting him, when the Talmud states in Yibamot, in page 24 bet, that Kulam Gerim Hem, that they are all converts. This passage refers to individuals who converted for the sake of marriage or because of other external factors. This refers only to those who did have the intention to accept the mitzvot in full. Rabbis who accept for conversion those candidates who come for worldly reasons, but who will not fulfill the mitzvot, are potentially making an error. This is what the article says, much evil will befall such rabbis. They are guilty of bringing thorns into the house of Israel. So Rabbi Kook argues that rabbis who accept such converts are transgressing the prohibition of lifnei iver, placing a stumbling block in the path of a blind person. By extension, this prohibition includes acts of misleading others. If the conversions are not halakhically valid, then the rabbis are misleading the Jewish public by calling such individuals Jewish people, when in fact they are not Jewish. This is what the article is saying. Such negligence will lead to many problems, including possible intermarriage. On the other hand, if these individuals are to be considered valid converts, then the rabbis are misleading them by not stressing how they will be subject to punishment for violating the mitzvot. Okay, in another response, Rav Kook again emphasizes that converts who do not commit themselves to keep the mitzvot should not be accepted. If unqualified individuals, hedyotot, accept them, no rabbi should perform weddings for them even after they have been converted in this way. And he quotes, "And happy is the one who stands in the breach to guard the purity of Israel. May a good blessing come to him." Okay, so for Rav Kook, then the acceptance of mitzvot is a general essential ingredient in Jewishness. One who does not accept to observe the mitzvot simply cannot become part of the Jewish people, even if he or she were to go through the technical rituals of conversion. And even if one were to find a halachic justification to validate these conversions, we should still not allow such converts to marry Jews. Now, Rabbi Uziel also wrote a number of responses dealing with would-be converts who committed to observance of mitzvot was deficient, while acknowledging that it was most desirable that converts accept all the mitzvot. Rabbi Uziel noted that in our times, many individuals seek conversion for the sake of marriage. Instead of disqualifying such conversions, however, Rabbi Uziel actually encouraged them. He felt that it was necessary for us to be stringent in matters of intermarriage. He felt that it was necessary for us to be stringent in matters of intermarriage. We should do everything possible to prevent a situation where a marriage involves a Jew and a non-Jew. If we can convert the non-Jewish partner to Judaism, then we have preserved the wholeness of that family for the Jewish people, and we can hope that their children will be raised as Jews. So you can see a big difference in the view over here of both the rabbis. Given the choice of having an intermarried couple or performing such a conversion, Rabbi Uziel ruled that it's better to perform the conversion. He, of course, believed that rabbis should do everything in their power to break off the projected intermarriage. They should resort to conversation only when it's clear that the couple would not be dissuaded from marriage to each other. That's what he adds on here inside this article. Okay. In another response, I think Rabbi Uziel explains that the obligation of rabbis is to inform candidates for conversion of some, not all, of the mitzvot. It's impossible for a bet din, let's say Jewish courts, this is what he says over here, to know with certainty that any convert will keep all the mitzvot. Conversion, even initially, does not require that the convert accepted to observe all the mitzvot. Indeed, the procedure of informing a non-Jew about the basic beliefs of mitzvot is required initially. But if this procedure were not followed and the non-Jew was converted ritually, let's say through Brit Milah and ritual immersion, without such information the conversion is valid, and notwithstanding, I think he quotes Yoredea over here, the source within regards to that, for that last bit over here, I think 268 number 2. Rav Uziel concludes that it's allowed and permissible and mitzvah to accept such converts, even when it is accepted that they would not observe all the mitzvot. Our hope is that they will come to observe the mitzvot in the future, he says. So Rav Uziel rejects the argument that since a vast majority of converts do not observe the mitzvot, we should not accept converts at all. On the contrary, he argues that it's a mitzvah to accept these converts. That's what he says. And he actually writes over here, and I fear that if we push them, children, away completely by not accepting their parents of conversion, we shall be brought to judgment, and they shall say to us, "You did not bring back those who were driven away, and those who were lost you did not seek," quoting Yechezkel chapter 34, verse 4. Okay, whereas Rav Kook saw the acceptance of mitzvot over here as it says the word as the sine qua the sine qua non of entering the Jewish fold. Rabbi Uziel thought it was not an absolute requirement at all, whereas Rav Kook believed that mitzvot are the defining feature of the Jewish people. And that's what says, the act of conversion, according to Rav Kook, required the convert to join the soul of Knesset Yisrael, a metaphysical, let's say, representation of the congregation of Israel. This can be accomplished only by total acceptance of the mitzvot, which are the essence of the Jewish soul. So that's what he says. Now, Rav Kook writes, the difference between the Jewish soul, its self, its inner desires, aspirations, character and status, and that of all nations at all levels is greater and deeper than the difference between a human soul and the animal soul. Between the latter, there is merely a quantitative distinction, but between the former, an essential qualitative distinction pertains. Okay, each Jew is connected to the Knesset Israel through the fulfilling of the mitzvot, he basically says. In stressing the distinctiveness of the Jewish people and essential difference from all nations, Rav Kook appears to downplay the ethical universalism implicit in the classic Jewish teaching that human beings were created in the image of God. So the article says, instead of focusing on the universal spiritual dignity of people, Rabbi Kook asserts a more radical distinction between Israel and other nations. On the other hand, the article says, Rav Kook did recognize the existence of select individuals among the nations who can reach spiritual targets over here. Rav Kook's hashkafa plays itself into other halachic issue of conversion. For him, a non-Jew needs to undergo a transformation of his soul in order to become part of Knesset Israel. Conversation, let's just say, is not just a matter, a conversion is not just a matter of following a set prescribed rules and guides. Rather, it's an all-encompassing spiritual transmission or transformation, possible only for a select few spiritually gifted individuals. Now, Kid's Hashkafa, Rav Kook's one, is imbued with mystical elements. This article says, given the kid's understanding of the nature of the Jewish soul, follows that he takes an elitist position vis-a-vis accepting converts. Rav Uziel too, let's say, stress the distinctness of the people of Israel. Indeed, his Hashkafa is close to Rav Kook's in that he also saw the people of Israel as an ideal model of humanity, embodying the highest form of harmony and spiritual unity. Rav Uziel recognized the distinctnesses of the people of Israel. He did not make the same sharp distinction between Jews and non-Jews, as did Rav Kook. Rather, Rav Uziel stressed the connection between Jews and non-Jews, and the responsibility of Jews to set good example from which the non-Jewish people could learn. Rav Uziel was also critical of those Jews who taught that one's Jewishness should be a private matter observed in the home, and who said that that one should be a human being when in public. And so he rejected such a notion as being absurd, since Judaism and humanity are connected and attached to each other. That's what he says over here. Like a flame and it's cold. Goal of Judaism is to have Jews be the finest human beings as possible. Rav Uziel also would reject the position of those who claim that Judaism was merely a faith. Clearly, the people of Israel constitute a nation with a distinctive national character. Neither the Torah nor our sages ever divorced Jewish faith from the Jewish peoplehood. He goes on a bit. Rav Uziel rejects the notion that Judaism could survive only if the Jews isolated themselves from the rest of society. Those who limited Jewish life to synagogue and study halls thereby were constricting the real message of Judaism. He argues that the Torah was quite capable of confronting all cultures and all the peoples without needing to surrender or hide. So he talks about that. He goes on. For Rav Uziel, the distinctiveness of the Jewish people is not seen as a mystical concept which separates Jews ontologically from the non-Jews. Rather, Jewish people have a positive responsibility of reaching out to the non-Jewish world and to bring them closer to religion ideals of Judaism. The Hashkafa manifests itself in a greater tolerance and openness when it comes to halachic question of conversion. Certainly it would be best if all Jews and all converts to Judaism observe the mitzvot in full. That's what he says. But since we don't live in an ideal world, we need to strive to attain the best possible results. So he goes on here. Now the article goes on, I'm skipping it. The hashkafic difference between Rav Kook and Rav Uziel concerning the nature of Jewishness also may be demonstrated in another halakhic area, autopsies. I think in 1931 Rav Kook was asked whether it was permissible to perform an autopsy as part of the training of doctors in medical schools with the expanding Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. There certainly was a need to train Jewish doctors. Medical training entailed autopsies. Rav Kook ruled that disgracing a dead body, nivul hamet, as it's called, is prohibition unique to the Jewish people, since Almighty commanded us to maintain the holiness of the body. He then went on to say that there is a sharp difference between Jews and non-Jews with regards to their bodies. Non-Jews consider their bodies only as a biological structure. They eat whatever they wish without restriction. They have no reason to be concerned with the issue of disgracing the dead body, so long as the autopsy was done for a reasonable purpose, such as a medical study. Rav Kook therefore recommended that the medical programs purchased non-Jewish bodies for the purpose of scientific research. He then started that the whole category of disgrace of the body stems from the fact that humans were created in the image of God, but this image of God is manifested particularly in Jews due to the holiness of the Torah. And gives more. Rabbi Uziel will write lengthily a response on the subject of autopsies, although he specified that his response was theoretical, let's just say, rather than a formal legal reading. In reviewing the halakhic literature on Nivul Hamet, he concluded that this category applies only when a dead body is treated disrespectfully. Autopsies performed in a respectful manner for the sake of medical knowledge do not constitute, according to Rabbi Uziel, Nivul Hamet. So he goes on more about it. He considers the question of whether it would be preferable to obtain non-Jewish bodies for the purpose of autopsies. His response was sharp and unequivocal. And certainly this should not even be said, and more certainly should not be written, since the prohibition of Nivul Hamet from the humiliation course to all humans. It goes on. It's clear then that Rav Kook understood the nature of Jewishness in Kabbalistic metaphysical terms. For him, there is a definite and almost unbridgeable gap between the people of Israel and non-Jewish nations. This hashkafa influences halakhic decisions in the areas of conversion and autopsy. On the other hand, Rav Uziel stressed the human quality of the Jewish people, the essential qualitiness of all people. His universalistic approach recognized distinctness of the Jewish people. He goes on. Another topic is women in civic life. This is what they both speak about. I think we'll conclude it after this. Rav Kook and Rav Uziel would differ to the role of women in civic life. Their halakhic decisions reflected their different attitudes on the role of women in traditional society. Women's rights to vote and to be elected to public office was the subject of controversy at that point in time. In the earlier stages of the early 20th century, in the struggle over women's suffrage, the rabbinical leadership of the old Yishuv generally opposed extending to women rights to vote and hold public office. However, the Sephardic rabbinic leadership favored granting these rights. Rav Kook, the leading Ashkenazi personality in this debate, argued that the Torah tradition relegated civic authority only to men, and that women were to remain private, domestic, and domain. That's what he says. Rav Uziel, the leading Sephardic voice in this debate, argued that innovation was not necessarily bad. On the contrary, it was fine to innovate where there was no clear Torah prohibition involved. On the question whether women should be permitted to vote, Rav Uziel stated, we have not found any clear foundation to forbid it. It is unreasonable to deprive women of this human right. Now it goes on and on. He speaks. Rav Uziel thought it was unjust to expect women to be bound to decisions over which they had no say. Some opponents of women's suffrage suggest that women's understandings was limited and they were not competent to vote. Obviously, Rav Uziel noted that many men had limited understanding. Also, should they be deprived of the right to vote? Also, he says, and response, I think, where Rav Uziel to serve as civil judges, as long as the communal authority of a judge. That was what he said. So they conclude this article. I didn't read everything in it. The opinions and decisions of Rav Kook and Rav Uziel. It has not been our purpose to determine who is right or wrong, or if both are right, let's just say. Rather, it was a purpose of the author of this to, let's say, illustrate the interrelationship between hashkafa and halakha. Philosophy and worldview of the posek are not only reflected in halakhic decisions, they help shape those halakhic decisions. That's what's stated over here. Now, friends, we're a community. We try to learn about famous rabbis of yesteryear. This was a special edition because it's going to be the yard site of Rabbi Avram Kook, who was chief rabbi of Israel, Ashkenazic chief rabbi in his time, especially between the years 1921 to 1935. We're talking about, he finished his tenure about 90 years ago. It was, because now we are obviously in the year 2025. We actually did record a video about Rav Kook, I believe, maybe 2 videos, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of his Hilula. Maybe it was about 2 years ago, but I have to double check on that. So I recommend everyone to look more into that. Friends, please subscribe to the channel. If you feel anyone is interested in watching these videos, please share these videos also to other people and grow the community. So on that note, wishing you well, take care, and thanks everyone for spending the time to watch. Have a great day.